5-month investigation finding that 49 members of Congress and 182 senior congressional staffers have violated the Stock Act, the insider trading law. I'm wondering if you have any reaction to that, and secondly, should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be. Because this is a free market and we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Many of you are not aware that the people that you're championing as politicians, the people that you're cheerleading, the people that you chose up on, many of them are deceiving you around what's really going on. And they're doing one thing to improve their situation financially while telling you that other things are important. So what we're going to talk about is this Wall Street Journal article, effort to ban stock trading among executive branch officials renewed, right? So Republican Senator Josh Hawley expected to introduce new bill Monday. Now, this makes him an outsider in the Republican Party because what he's proposing is going to limit the ability of a lot of Republican politicians to improve themselves financially using their political position, right? So Senator Josh Hawley, who's a Republican, I believe from Missouri, is expected to introduce legislation Monday that will ban senior executive branch officials from owning or trading individual stocks. And he wants to push tougher restrictions on conflicts of interest in federal government, right? So immediately what that does, it makes him an outsider to everybody, regardless of his political affiliation, right? So Mr. Hawley's bill is the latest fallout from Wall Street Journal series that identified a sweeping pattern of financial conflicts across the executive branch, including finding that more than 2,600 officials invested in companies overseen by their agencies, right? So we had 2,600 officials that were invested in companies overseen by their agencies. Senior members of the executive branch who have access to privileged information should not be using it to get rich, Mr. Hawley said, right? Mr. Hawley in 2022, top of the year, introduced a bill that would ban lawmakers and their spouses from owning or trading individual stocks. That bill didn't move forward, but Mr. Hawley reintroduced it in January, okay? Proponents of tougher stock trading restrictions said current rules don't do enough to address potential conflicts of interest or potential trading on access to non-public information. Mr. Hawley's bill, reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, would require senior executive branch officials defined as career and political officials above a certain pay grade to divest their and their spouse's stocks or place them in a blind trust within 6 months of starting their job. And the ban would not apply to diversified mutual funds. And what we understand is that a lot of politicians, right, especially, like he said, at the executive branch, but also at the top level on a national level, but also on your state level too, if you really look into it, they're heavily invested in the markets. And we're going to kind of show you a breakdown of what I'm talking about, because one of the things that what makes us successful in what we do is we know how to find the information. We not only how to find the information, but we know how to leverage the information to get the results we want to get in the world. So we don't know how to just find it and present it. We know how to interpret the data to get the understanding to do what we want to do in the world. And that's what makes us different, right? What I would call in the stock market sharks. And this is something that a lot of people came in with the ability to do. Other people learn how to do over time, and now they're able to leverage that ability. And that's not something that most people are taught in school, regardless of their educational background, right? They know how to regurgitate the information, but they don't necessarily know how to leverage it to get what they want. So we're able to go to this particular platform called Unusual Whales, right? And big up to them. We're going to give them the credit for compiling this information, because the information is not difficult, but the way in which you have to go to get it and compile it can take time. So this is a paid service that allows me access to this information, right? So we're looking at trading activity by members of Congress, including all asset transactions disclosed by each member. And we understand that often, many times, these Congress people do not disclose their trading activity or their asset transactions because the penalty for them not disclosing is really not that great. So they often will make a trade in the market but not disclose it to us because it's supposed to be publicly available information, because the penalty for them not disclosing is really not that great. We look at Tommy Tuberville, right? We look at Rokana. We have all these people, right? And this is just going to be for 21 and 22. So 23 information has not yet been compiled. Now, here's what I want you to stop real quick and understand. Look at a lot of the people in the political space that are sometimes the most controversial. Their Twitter page is always going up. They always saying something controversial. They're never talking about what bill they're getting ready to pass like this guy. He's actually putting the bill up there, right? Okay. They're never talking about the bill they're trying to pass. They're just doing something controversial on the internet to try to rally and throw red meat at their audience. Many of these people, when you actually look at their trading activity, they're trading in and out of the market. Now, they're never going to tell their constituents how to do that. They're never going to say, hey, let's create a symposium, or let's create an educational platform, and let's teach you how to get money in this new lane. No, they're going to just tell you, hey, the issue is woke corporations. The issue is, we're not free enough because, yada, yada, yada. The issue is that, you don't have enough identities behind your name. They're going to tell you everything except how to actually become financially successful in this environment. But they believe that's what you want to hear. So every time you pay attention to that and you respond to it, you're giving them the illusion or the idea that this is really what's important to me. So we got the list of all the asset transactions, right, of these particular people. Now we have the asset differences. And here's what we want to see, 2022, right? We see that on the House, the majority of the asset trading or the asset transactions, right, was done via stocks, right, from 21 to 2022. And we know 2022 was a bad year. 2021, they went crazy, 531 million. And we also see options. Didn't buy a lot of government security and agency debt, which we understand is guaranteed. So you would think they would buy risk-free assets. I don't need to buy risk-free assets because if I know something that the average person don't know, it is risk-free, right? Because you would normally think, well, they would buy government-backed stuff because that's risk-free. Well, it's not risk-free if you know which way the game is going, right? So somebody would say, well, David, why did you bet on the game? It's a risk you might lose. Well, not if I know how they're going to call the game. It's not a risk. I know who's going to win. And that's what I want you to understand. So you see that they're putting a lot of money in the stock market, right? They're putting a lot of money in the stock market. You don't see a lot of money in hedge funds. You don't see a lot of money in anything else. They're not buying the ABS market. They're not buying corporate bonds. They're not buying corporate securities. They're not buying a lot of crypto, right? What are they buying? They're buying a lot of equity positions, right? Same thing with the Senate. The majority of the buying is in stocks that are not publicly traded, but it doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to influence it, right? So they're buying private stuff, okay? And they're also buying stocks. Okay, so this is what we want to understand. Now let's look at the sector differences. Technology services for the House, heavily invested in tech, right? Industrial services, finance, electronic technology, consumer services, right? Same thing with the Senate. Technology services, finance, electronic technology, consumer services. Pretty much the same categories, okay? Let's go. Total value of assets bought and sold in Congress of 2022. Same thing. Stocks being the biggest one, right? Total value of assets bought and sold in Congress of 2022. Stocks being the biggest one. Democrats and Republicans. Republicans in the red. Democrats in the blue. Okay. So the question we want to ask ourselves again: what are they talking to you about, and what are they doing? Because they figured out this is the stuff that's important to you, because we program you to believe this stuff is important. So we programmed a person in Wyoming that what's important is what's going on in Florida between DeSantis and Disney. Now, that don't change nothing you got going on in Wyoming, but we program you to think that's important. While behind the scenes, we all getting together and figuring out how we going to make each other wealthy using these corporations and using the equity market. Because we talked about before, they don't want to just buy the SPY. Now, why come they don't want to buy the SPY? So with David, well, how come they just don't want to buy the SPY? Because what do we know about the SPY? If you've been tapped into the channel, you actually broke the information down. The S&P 500 or the SPY is heavily concentrated in 3 to 4 companies. But if I'm looking at a deal that's getting ready to hit the table or a bill that's getting ready to be passed, it may not disproportionately impact one of those 3 to 4 companies. It may impact another company that has a weight in the SPY of 0.1. So then therefore, what does that mean? I need to invest in that individual company, not invest in the SPY, because even if my position in that individual, let's say the share price of that individual company goes up because of its weight in the SPY, it will not increase the value of the SPY. The value of the SPY is hinged to the companies that have the largest amount of exposure to the SPY, which is going to be 3 to 4 companies. That may not be in the company that's going to have the greatest impact positively or negatively based on a new bill or a new law that's getting ready to get passed. So that's why these politicians don't want to just buy mutual funds and invest in the overall market. No, they want to buy individual tickers because they want to trade the market. Right? But they're never going to talk to you about that. So this is what I want people to understand. You have been programmed from the gate to be in the economic situation that you're in. That's not your fault. What is your fault is when the truth is presented to you, you continue to participate in what's not going to ever allow you to become successful. That's when it fall back on you. So we're not going to just blame the politician because now you're being presented with the evidence. Now I know that the evidence may be contrary to what you've been taught your whole life. So I'm not trying to make you feel like you're wrong. What I do want you to ask yourself is maybe I was not as informed about the reality of the situation that maybe I thought I was. David W. Williams, talk to you later.